today I think is going to be a lot more opinions than yesterday because yesterday was all facts. Today's just hyperbole and fun, or not fun. We'll see. But thank you for joining us for the See You at Noon call. Once again, all of these are our own opinions, not necessarily KREIA's, but you can probably hold it against them because it's president and vice president. Guys, we're just answering questions today. We might just kind of spit the shit. We'll take some video calls from you guys too if you want to jump in. I mean, last night was fine. I think sometimes it can be overwhelming, but yeah, I think it ran pretty smooth. What do you guys think of the meeting? Let's start with
that. John, you want to go, or you want me to go?
Actually, yeah, either one. Go ahead.
All right. Well, honestly, I thought the meeting last night went great. Again, I was just extremely proud of the KREIA organization for the output, the hard work. I was also really excited about the membership participation. We had about the usual attendance, about 200 or so people in the room. We had a couple of 300-person meetings at a spike, but generally about 200 people. And what I found interesting, the meeting did go on for almost 3 hours, and this is in case there's anybody on here that wasn't on last night. And then towards the end, it started to thin out a little bit, and I can only attribute that to normally people head to the bar. So I don't know, maybe that's what they were doing last night too, is just like, okay, I've had enough of this. I'm headed to the bar at their own homes or whatever. But again, big thanks to everybody. Great effort, great output. We were kind of talking about facts last night, and like Rob and I were just talking before the meeting started, that if I wasn't right in the middle of this and so concerned about myself, my family, my friends, the KREIA membership, the world economy, this will be fascinating just to sit on the outside and watch. This is completely unprecedented. Nothing like this has ever happened. I watch the news and read. I'm just incessantly now trying to piece together what all this means and what it looks like. And, it's like nobody knows. I don't care what kind of expert you are out there. We are going to be blindsided. And this is not a doomsday, Mr. Negative talk. I mean, Rob always likes to keep it positive, but we don't really know how all this is going to happen, how it's going to pan out. Watch the news every day. A couple of takeaways, though, is right now everybody seems to be focusing on, okay, what's going on in my world, and how am I impacted so far 45 days into this thing? And as a landlord, I'll put that hat on for a second. As a landlord, we've had a pretty good success collecting our rents. We're working with people where we need to work with people. But I worry about, what starts to happen down the road if this thing doesn't start to get its legs back under it. And I think people are sort of living off momentum. They've got a little bit of savings. They got stimulus checks. They don't really know, what to do other than do what they've always done, pay their bills and work hard and kind of move ahead. But what's going to happen as this thing progresses? So just a couple thoughts here. Right now, and these are statistics that I shopped around for on the internet today. Our unemployment is, somewhere around 15%. It's all happened quickly. There's all sorts of subsidies out there and other programs that are helping people. In the Great Depression, our unemployment peaked at 25%. So everybody in the world knows, or in the United States anyway, hears about the Great Depression and how bad it was and all that and so forth. Well, we're at 15% now. 25 was the peak. So where will this thing go? Right now, everybody is still trying to talk about phase 1, 2, and 3, like Eric Hitzelberger was talking about last night on his presentation. The public-facing businesses, all retail, restaurants. And think about the oil industry. We really haven't even thought about that.
No.
I read there is 1% worldwide capacity right now for oil storage. So all the super tankers are filled, sitting in the harbors. Any container, every tank, every whatever is filled. So if you think about the impact that the world, that oil has on our world, there's zero incentive right now for anybody to pump oil out of the ground because they have nothing to do with it. So an entire worldwide industry, of which the United States had recently become the #1 exporter of oil, if I'm understanding that statistic right. So that means everything has to stop because there's no demand, and all of our capacity is currently maxed out, and there is 0 or 1% capacity to put the oil that comes out of the ground someplace. So what kind of effect does that have on, what ripple is there? Think about Las Vegas. I mean, that whole town, the large part of the state, depends almost 100% on tourism, revenue, travel, gambling, restaurants, public-facing things. They don't know what to do. There is no answer out there right now. So what you start adding all these things up, and they begin to take a chunk out of the available marketplace, and those dollars disappear. What does that mean? Luke Neubauer last night, and I love this word, pivot. So Luke used it several times. And how can the world pivot? What does the world have to do to pivot? How can you eliminate entire industries to replace them with something else that we don't even understand where that's going to come from yet? So I don't know. I'm not an economist. I don't understand a lot of this. I didn't do very well in economics. Know that economies are complicated. They're resilient. The whole world may have to pivot some. Let's see. What else can I ramble on about here? Gross domestic product. So there was another statistic that I was looking at today. And again, this is just information. I'm not gloom and doom, and I'm just sitting here as like the rest of the world trying to figure out what the heck is going to happen here. So our gross domestic product in the United States, this is out of the internet this morning, was $19 trillion. So that represents the entire production of the United States in 2019 was $19 trillion. We've all heard forever about the struggles with the national debt. Our national debt right now is $24 trillion. So that's larger than 1 year's production from the United States. So does that include the recent 5 billion or 4 billion, whatever the trillion is? So now the government has committed in the last 30 days to adding $3.5 trillion in the form of these subsidies and the other things that we're all reading about. And that's not even to mention the additional trillions that are being pumped into the economy. Jordan Pone last night was talking about the government is buying and supporting the mortgage industry by purchasing the mortgages that have requests for forbearance or forgiveness or delays. So they're trying to do their part to prop that up. But the question is, where does that money come from? It comes from the printing press. So we're 24 trillion in debt, and these are, I'm kind of getting excited about going on about this. It's just so fascinating. Again, if I wasn't so impacted by it, but in the last 45 days, the government has just said, okay, here's $5 trillion, and we're just going to keep on doing whatever we have to do. Well, what happens if July, August, September, things are not, they haven't turned around, or we haven't started to solve this problem? The government's not going to stop propping this stuff up. It's not like the Great Depression where they just said, sorry about your luck. If you starve to death, you starve to death. I just don't see that happening. So where I'm kind of bringing this back around is, I don't know what the heck's going to happen. It's just interesting to kind of think about it and study about the what ifs. The other side of me hopes this is over in a very short amount of time. We pivot in the right direction. There's a solution out there, whatever that looks like, medical or otherwise. So anyway, I don't know, but Rob always kind of exudes this sense of positivity and encourages to focus on the good. And I'm not trying to not focus on the good. I just think that, we're in uncharted waters, and nobody knows what we're going to be blindsided by. The whole public facing thing and the social distancing and all that was one part of it. And then here, this oil thing blindsided us with, hell, nobody even thought about that. So it's just like another collateral consequence that we're dealing with here.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Something you're saying is just super fascinating. There's this book I read, and it's called, I had to look up the author, but his name's George Friedman. And the book is called The Next 100 Years, where they predict everything that was going to happen for the next 100 years. This didn't make the book. But what they do is they go back in the past and look how we got to where we are now as well. And it is fascinating. Because I guess America, we were like, we were tapping into everyone else's oil for the longest time. And then we started doing our own because we wanted to have all the commodity because it's not, a renewable resource. And I just thought it's interesting. So if you're looking for a book to read, read George Friedman, The Next 100 Years. It is like awesome. Like, I think anybody who likes history too will love this book.
If it's on Audible, I'm going to use my next Audible credit for it.
Let me see if I'll look for it.
Anyway, that was just sort of my rant there. Thanks for bearing with me there. Again, just as the KREIA president, I'm very grateful that everything that happened last night with a successful first meeting. Sorry about the rant, but I just wanted to get that off. John, how about you, man? What do you got?
Man, I don't have all that. No. Well, actually, you bring up some good points, though, that I think we all have to be thinking about. But I think last night for our first big meeting like that went very well, and it was because of everybody who participated. The presenters were great. April working in the background. And again, of course, I was sweating this, bringing it, trying to bring this forward. But now I think, hey, we've gone over that threshold. Kind of broken ground for us as a club. So I think the timing is very interesting because what Lauren's been doing with the website and putting all this out there, what Rob's been doing with the See You at noon, it's just kind of coming in real nice. So for the club, I think this is, as odd as it may sound, has been a very beneficial kind of coming together. I'm kind of like Rob in that I'm usually the half full, right? I'm always looking at the positive side of things, but trying to be realistic. So I'll tell them this quick little story. So in the board meeting 2 months ago, when we're sitting there, I hope you don't mind me telling this, Chris. Let me share two things. First off, Chris comes from longtime investor, right? He brings a long experience, and so he's been through some of these ups and downs. I, on the other hand, hold on. Let me close this door. Just heard my wife come in. She didn't know I'm on this. So I jumped in about 2007, started getting into the investing side of things, and quite honestly, I probably, by the hair of my chin, didn't get hurt when everything went down. But I was real close to, I would have been further in. So I started building in 2009 that's where I started really coming along. So I have a different perspective because I haven't really been through having a lot of rentals and going through this, this big change. So, but here's the thing that I always heard from Chris and Ed and all these, longtime experienced guys. It's like, just make sure you know what you're doing and keep it tight and keep it close. And I didn't always listen to them. And just going into this, I had some properties that, everything just changed.
Is that one of you guys?
It wasn't me.
It's okay.
Yeah. So quite honestly, Dennis Earhart and I had a conversation a few months back, and I was like, I've got some bigger properties I really wouldn't want to be left with if this happened. So I happened to sell 3 of them. I still have 1 left that I need to move in that regard. But anyway, so we come through all this. I'm thinking, all right, so now what are we going to do? And going back to what Chris was saying, man, this is crazy stuff. And somebody had even put in the chat, unprecedented. Yeah, we don't know. And the oil, I was reading about the oil the other day as well, and how we're probably going to see another big hit in the oil. And we do not know what that ripple is going to bring, just like we didn't think all the people not driving was going to improve the air, but kill the fuel, the fossil fuel consumption. What's that really going to do? And so I'm cautiously optimistic right now. I'm a little puckered thinking what is going to happen in the market? How is that going to impact us? And yet I'm thinking if we can just push through this, all of our fellow club members, if we can, just get through this, here's what and Chris may jump in here because I thought he was going to go down this path. Guys, all this money being pumped into the system, man, that's not gold being pulled up out of the ground. That's just printed. What's going to happen now? And again, this is just opinion according to John, right? man, inflation's going to have to kick in at some point. I got news for you. I'll love having my real estate make it through this, and holds are going to be sweet. Everything's going to go up. It'll have to. I just think we've got a rough period to get through to get to that point, and we all have to be very wise and manage our properties, manage our homes, manage our incomes, and just try and come out on the other end. And then I think everybody will be sitting a little bit sweeter. But I think inflation is going to be huge in a year or so when it starts kicking in. But again, I'm not an economy major. I'm just going based on what little I've learned over the years and trying to apply it. So I think there's great opportunity. And then coming back to the club.
I'm trying to get a video. I'm hearing them, but I can't get the video.
I got it.
Okay. So I think technology-wise, us bringing it to the club members right now is really good. I think we'll leverage it some more, maybe just to get by on another meeting, but I think other additional trainings outside of the main meeting, because we are a unique REIA with that intimacy, with the coming together. And I think it was a little bit like that last night, but it's still not like showing up and having dinner and getting off and networking the way we do. So, but I think overall it went great.
Well, you got to think it's interesting. So Chris said that we had close to 200 people on the call, which is about what a standard meeting is for like taxes or something. When we're talking about like the sexy stuff like flipping and wholesaling, we get major crowds. But you got to think, I just Googled it. It was like a 3-hour call. So we started with like 180 and we got down to like 150. So we kept 150 people's attention for Lawrence of Arabia and the Titanic Lane. That's crazy. I mean, I've sat through those movies and I needed bathroom breaks. So I think that's pretty impressive. And you got to think people were drinking last night. I mean, like the draft, the only sports thing that's been on in months was on. I mean, I'm pretty proud that we did a great job. Couple things just based on what you guys said. My parents, when I got my first credit card, I guess I must have been tied to their account or something, but it was Chase Bank, and they gave me a $50,000 limit as a senior in high school, which is insane. So my stepmom told me to walk back in, go to the bank, and change it to $500. And my stepmom's reasoning is you can pay back a $500 credit card in 1 month of work, like easily. Well, Chris's stat, apparently America did not take that hint, because we're over a year's worth of work to pay back our credit card, essentially, which is kind of insane. Other things I had, Joe Barnett is probably just salivating, because I think, Joe stopped buying because he got so accustomed to all these great deals and prices. He's like, I used to be able to buy this for 30. I'm not paying 80 for this. So I'm curious to see, if he thinks he's going to get back into it. I think Malcolm Gladwell is going to have a fascinating book eventually about all the ramifications of all this that we didn't see coming. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, I'm sure you saw the pictures of the Himalayan Alps, and like no one had been able to see them for years because of all the smog. Like there's a lot of cool stuff coming out of this. But I love Malcolm Gladwell's books as well. It's funny too that oil and Airbnbs were essentially like the best bets, the safest plays. You're getting 2.5 times the amount of money on an Airbnb than you were rentals. So I don't know. And it stinks because we have such a surplus. It'd be nice to just, stockpile, but we don't have anywhere to put it. Right. So I just thought that was interesting. And then I do okay in business too. And I had to make decisions like, should I put my countertops in or not? Because that's like $6,000. And I have cardboard boxes on my counters right now. And I decided that I'm doing well enough that I can put the countertops on there. But in 6 months, am I going to regret the $6,000 decision? So, I mean, I'm thinking about it. Frank Miller, loaded, just got a $120,000 Burr check. He's not renovating his basement. And part of that is he wants to have money, to spend on some of these deals that should be coming. But he's also playing it safe. So if he's doing it, we should be doing it too, guys. Countertops are a necessary need. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's right. Hey, Chris, did you? And I know your business is like this big monster over here besides your investing, but did the Triple P come through for you?
We've got so this to answer your question, this is outside of the real estate world. We don't have the money yet, but we have a tracking number and a commitment number. And what the bank says is that's as good as having it. The money's been set aside. One of the things about for those that don't know, I also operate a retail business.
What type of retail business, Chris?
motorcycles. So a retail business. And we've been obviously impacted by this. We've been closed for a month. We have millions of dollars worth of inventory sitting there that's, can't be sold. And so we're sort of in that hat that I wear. We are substantially impacted by this COVID crisis. So to answer your question, John, we have not received it yet. I feel like it's on the way. An interesting thing about the PPP money and the SBA, there's a couple different ones. The PPP program, it's really depending. It's not based upon your necessary need. It's based upon your qualifications. And so your need and your qualifications may not necessarily align with each other, but again, the government doesn't care. So like, for example, if, a business is sitting there with several $1 million in cash, they technically don't need the money, but they qualify for the money because of the loss in business that they have. So one of the conversations that I've had with another investor friend of mine was that the banks now, and again, there's always an angle to everything. And so this hadn't occurred to me until he spelled it out. So these local banks, they encourage you for the PPP program that if you have an existing banking relationship, then you should try to capitalize on that relationship. And that's where you go for your PPP benefits if you're going to apply. Well, the banks now are sort of using this. They collect fees from the SBA and the federal government for originating these loans that are forgivable if you meet the criteria. But the banks then are also saying, well, hey, this basket of borrowers here that are applying and that are our customers, we as bankers want to make sure that they survive so that they can pay our loans back. And so there's some inequities maybe in the system that, and I think we've kind of seen some of the challenges with that of some of these public companies that are getting loans. But anyway, I'm rambling on. So it's just not always exactly what it seems to be. And it was just at the end of the day on that application process, I was really surprised that need and want, or need and qualifications, are two different things, meaning that, at the end of the day, a lot of this money, the stimulus that's going out there is not going to be well utilized. And so then, everybody has an opinion on it. But anyway, I hope that answers your question, John. I don't have the money yet, but I think it's coming.
Well, yeah. And I will just tell you, I have to correct my statement I made last night. I said I hadn't received it, but apparently I had received it. It was in our account. So we actually have received our PPP money. And it was, we originally, when we submitted, and I tell you what was, I happened to be in front of the computer every time they started to come back with a question, and I was able to respond. And what originally we heard, and I share this just for those who are out there who may be doing the same thing. So, we have a lot, we spend a lot on 1099s, and I have 2 full-time guys that are on 1099. And then we also have W-2 employees. And so I originally put in for the 2 full-time 1099s, not all the other contractors that I have. But anyway, I put all that in. Well, then they came back because originally they said you could. They nixed all that. So we got it all cleaned up. And to your point, it came back down to what you paid last quarter, what you paid last year on your W-2s. And that's what they used to make their position on. But this was through BB&T. And yes, to your point, we're an existing customer of theirs. And we did get in right away. So when this opened up, as soon as it did, we had submitted. But we're a little guy compared to what you're dealing with over there. But we did get ours. So I'm just saying, BB&T being one of the bigger banks, and yet we were able, and they processed, and we're in. So just a encouragement for anyone else who's out there trying to do it. It is, and this is before this was approved. So we made it in the first cut.
Yeah. And to that point too, anybody that meets the criteria, there is new money coming, and I'm not sure how they're actually handling applications, if they're still accepting them or not. But put it in perspective, this latest stimulus is $4 trillion, and I'm not sure how it's going to be allocated, but that's compared to $2.2 trillion the last time around. And it's not just small businesses that are going to be benefiting from it. I mean, just think about the hospitals and municipalities and governments and sales taxes that are not being collected for the states. I mean, this thing just keeps on rippling and rippling and rippling. forever. The furloughed workers and the unemployment claims. The unemployment is really a pool of money that is a calculation based upon projected need. So employers pay into an unemployment fund based upon the likelihood that they are going to need the money, and there's a history. So businesses that have higher unemployment claims than others would pay a less percentage, presumably. But there was no safeguard or safety valve in the system for 15 and 20% unemployment. The money just isn't there, other than the printing press that eventually has to originate in Washington, D.C. and make its way down through the state governments, the municipalities, and the cities. So, again, just rambling on about all the pontificating.
That's what we pay you to be here for, Chris.
What's that?
That's why we pay you to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the big bucks, right? But anyway, it just, the whole thing is, again, if we're not all caught up in the middle of it, it's fascinating to watch what's happening. And here is the central thing. And I swear this, I could write this on the wall and it'll come true. Nobody really knows what is going to happen and how this is going to end. Could be great, could be easy, or we just don't know.
Guys, think about this. We've been on this call for 27 minutes, and already all these new wrinkles that we had never thought about are just coming out. Like, you know what? I hadn't really thought about that. Or I hadn't, like, just imagine there's people that literally just sit here and think about this for like 8 hours a day. Like, think about how far the rabbit hole goes. It's kind of insane, but it's cool. And Sue says something, it is our grandkids and kids will be paying for this someday. Yeah, we're already there. I mean, we were there before all of this. Some interesting things, though. You're going to see a lot of new drafts of a lot of old books. Like now with this PPP money and all this stuff, it might change if you run your business as a 1099 or if you make yourself a W-2 or if you have an S-Corp. It's a new factor. And then all these safe jobs. I was talking to my buddy who's a CPA. If all these businesses start going out of business, they're going to lose people they do taxes for. A CPA is supposed to be one of the safest jobs out there. So now So now, I mean, if anything, it should say, even with your kids, your grandkids, yourself, go for the goal and dream job you want, because there is no stability anymore. Like, you should put yourself in a position to do the things you want to do. I don't know. Eat that ice cream. I'm just kidding. But a lot of people are stressed out because if you go on Instagram or Facebook, it's like, you're going to regret like this 3 months coming out of it without a new skill or trade. Gosh, like some people have like 4 kids. I don't know. I just feel like people are just piling on stress on each other all the time. Gosh, I couldn't imagine being like a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids in an apartment, like trying to homeschool, trying to still do their job. I mean, like, gosh, check on your neighbors. But it's weird because people are weirded out when you knock on their door too because of the corona. What a weird time, right? Gosh.
You know what? The one thing that comes to mind though, and you had some guest on a week or so ago, and he kept going back to, it's a great time to clean up your business, clean up your processes, clean up your systems. Excuse me, I can't help but I think all of us, investor-wise, brand new, just started, in the middle, very seasoned. The real seasoned folks tend to already have an idea and hopefully are already positioned coming into this. I think the rest of us all have to look at, okay, now we believe what they said is true. Hopefully we did some of what they said. Now, how are we going to come out of it? So I also think as long as we're not trying to just survive, in other words, we're not clawing to survive, I think we need to take advantage of how to come out of it and looking ahead. So I think we mentioned a few things here. I think inflation is going to be inevitable. I think that the point Chris made is right now, between now and then, we don't know. I loved what everybody put up last night. A couple things, what Eric showed, I thought was just really insightful. The reintroduction back in and the blip up and we get to phase 2 and then the blip up and all the realistic. And I think it kind of put a real perspective on best case. I think best case is September, we're finding whatever the new normal is. That's probably best case based on what I saw. I don't know what you all think about that. But so when you think that's best case, we've got to make it through to there. We can at least start to kind of set our sights and see that we can make it to that point, surviving whatever these other ripples are. whatever the oil prices, right now, that's actually the oil prices are good for us, but what's it really doing in the long haul? What's going on with our, I like bacon. Well, all the production and everything's we just don't know what's going to happen in that regard. But surviving all of that, if we can set ourselves up, come out of this, improve our systems. And then again, the folks who are just starting out. So, some of the new folks, is now a good time to wholesale. And I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to touch any of that right now. I'm just saying it's interesting, and we're all in a different place, and we just need to do the best we can to kind of see our way through it. The other thing I'm going to tell you was what I loved, to your point, Chris, on I'm drawing a blank. What Luke shared about the pivot. I mean, spot on. We need to be able to pivot, and he did it and he tends to be a little on the conservative side, which I appreciate a lot, but he was able to move quickly. And I hope everyone else has adjusted like that as well, especially with Airbnb, because that seems to have been the big hit, but that's what we've got to do.
On just to sort of to tag onto that thought, John. So I'm going to talk about 2008 a little bit as the really most relevant comparison that we have right now. And the last actual employer I had in my life, I was 21 years old. So I've been in one way or another on my own in business, and I've had several different businesses. But my point is, I always felt, and these words are these are not naysayer words. These are just old man wisdom. Okay, if I can claim that. I always felt invincible. That I always felt that there's no problem I can't figure out, and because I always internalized problems and said, I as an individual will figure this out as a problem. And I just always sort of believed that throughout all my adult years until 2008. And I had people, somebody tell me, there will come a day of reckoning, and you need to be ready for that. And again, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just speaking about my life here as it relates to the membership and any help that I can offer. And so up until that time, I was just in my mind, I'm like, are you kidding? This is going to go on forever. Whatever happens, I'll figure it out, until 2008. And even when 2008 was unfolding, and again, I'm in the retail business as well as the real estate business, I'm just thinking, next week it'll be fine. It's just a little blip, whatever. And the next week comes, the next month comes. It just keeps getting bloodier and bloodier and bloodier. People are, crashing and burning. Things are just going to hell in a handbasket. Well, so we got through it. I got through it. Everybody managed their way through it. But the point is, it took me a long time to mentally accept that it was really over. I spent so many waking hours stressed out and worrying about making it through, getting to the other side. It almost hindered my ability to think about, expanding or taking it on to the next step. I remember I live in Middletown, and there was a Panera Bread construction that was being built in Middletown there. It was the first commercial building I'd seen in 5 years that I really, because things were so battened down. Nobody was doing construction. It was bad. It was just bad news after bad news. We were all just hunkered down trying to figure out. Well, my mindset at the time was I couldn't see the uptick coming. It did take a while. And so the uptick was well underway. And I'm still of this mindset of, I can't, like Rob was saying about Joe Burnett earlier, I can't pay $80,000 for that house. Are you crazy? I remember when it was 30. So that whole revival, if you will, sort of caught me off guard, and I'm still mentally trying to keep up with it. So to the point here, be ready to the extent you're able to be ready. I mean, there's only so much anybody can do if it gets bad or gets worse. But, just be prudent, be mindful of making bad choices now, be conservative in your thoughts until we really do have some direction, because right now it's just a guess. Your guess is as good as anybody else's about what September is going to look like. We all hope it's somewhat back to normal and some sort of, routine, and some predictability about it. But until then, my words are just be careful. Hard work will cure a lot. Be careful. Sorry for the ramble.
No, we like it. One thing I want to note, paper towels are at my grocery store. So I think people are maybe relaxing a little bit, just getting more accustomed to all this. 3 national wholesalers have reached out to me in the last 2 weeks about wanting to start churning deals up in our market. So I don't know if that means anything to anyone, but like people still like our market. I have some, John, you weren't on the call yet, but I was talking to Chris. I thought we'd have some attrition go maybe from 730 to maybe 500 members in KREIA, kind of similar to like 2008 where we lost a lot of members. But I'm having members that were members 4 or 5 years ago. They bought 4 or 5 rentals, got comfortable in that stuff, and then they just kind of phased into the rest of their life. They're coming back because of all the uncertainty. They want to know what's going on. So I think we're going to have some old faces that we didn't recognize or hear from a lot. They're coming back, which is kind of cool. And then John Farber, who's one of my clients. He's from New York, but he lives in North Carolina. He's in between North Carolina and New York. And he's a member at their local REIAs. And he said, no, like they don't have anything like that going on at his other REIAs. He loved last night's calls. He thought it was great and just a lot of value add. So I thought that was something I should share. Now, what is it? Alice, who's the national REIA person?
Phil, April.
I knew it was an A name. I had so many side conversations going. She shut me down. I assume it was everybody, but I had too many things going on the side because I saw names. I was like, hey, I just want to check in, make sure you're doing okay. Do you need anything? And eventually I couldn't make any more side conversations. I just thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I guess we can talk shop. I don't have anything lined up. I've got some national speakers. I'm in 2 Facebook groups where people are reaching out to me about content for this. What do you guys think? Do you think maybe we bring on each person that spoke and have them elaborate more on what they talked about last night or field more questions about their specific topic? I can have people specialize in, self-directed IRAs or whatnot. I wanted to get, so back in the day, I proposed, since I was a gold sponsor, I was like, I want to do a toga event where we had everybody dress up in togas. And then they would we'd field questions kind of like it was back in the day. I thought it would be funny. And then I also want to do a fireside chat with Harry Borders, something like that, where he just tells us all the bad things that have ever happened. And it might save some people from having that problem down the road. And I thought it would be funny too. You could tell some good stories, I'm sure. But I don't know. What kind of content do people want?
I think you're right on, Rob. I mean, I think that a great place to start if you're searching for content for the Zoom program at noon is to start with our presenters last night. Again, particularly as long as people are holed up and, it's easy, it's great content. I mean, I was personally just very impressed with, and we as a board had talked about trying to provide facts as opposed to opinions. And I thought we had a great mix of facts and opinions. And it goes back to, in our industry, trying to disseminate all this information and figure out how much of it and what relates to us. And I think a lot of people got some very specifics last night. So yeah, it's a good place to start with those presenters. Okay.
Well, cool. Does anybody have any? Brian Halsey. Let's make sure. He has a question. He did the hand raising thing. I don't see him. Brian, I don't see him. Anybody else have any questions? Here. Oh, you're here. Go ahead, Brian.
I have no idea. I probably screwed you guys up a while ago when I was trying to put my face on that thing, and then that's when you said what happened. That was me doing something.
Did you break the screen?
Yeah. Well, luckily you guys don't get to see my beautiful face. Hey, all the conversations I've been listening to, I haven't had anybody talking about tenants that has C19, and I've got one. They have moved out, and they've moved into their parents' house weeks ago, and it has been vacated. But what is, we talk about what we need to talk about liabilities. How do we clean it up? Do we need to clean it up even if it's been empty, say, 3 weeks?
Hey, Brian, I would say I don't think anybody on this call professes to be a health expert, but I would maybe check with the CDC website. That might be a place to start. Lauren has posted some links on the KREIA website for information for such as this, but I'm sure there's a protocol. It shouldn't be terribly difficult to find, and I don't think it's like equivalent to having a meth lab. I think there's a life cycle of these virus it's not like, it's indefinite. It's a limited period of time, but I'm sure there's just, my thoughts would be there would be some information out there on the CDC site or something equivalent.
I told him to leave the keys in the mailbox, put them in a plastic bag, and I'll go over there and just dump alcohol in it and rub them up real good before I go in. He said he has not been in there for weeks, so we're probably okay. But with all my surgeries in the last couple of years, that makes me just a little bit nervous.
I mean, I would not think it's something that has to be disclosed, but again, I'm not a lawyer.
I'm going to send you an article. It's about how long the coronavirus will last on surfaces. I know some it'll last longer periods, so that might be a good starting point for you. I'll post that in the chat.
And like you said, Chris, at this present time, it's not a disclosable issue. You think?
I would be my guess, but I'm not I'm not,
you don't want me to say Chris said?
Okay, you can say it, Chris said, but we've already disclosed that we're not experts. We're just men with opinions on here. So,
all right, thanks, guys.
I'm sorry, Rob. Lauren just posted a chat there that Brian's question would be a good one to ask the National REIA call today at 4 p.m.
It is a good one. I agree, because I don't think we've heard anybody who's dealt with that. So that would be good to get some info.
Yeah.
Yeah, he he had got sick. He was lost his job and then got furloughed out. So he was moved out and moved into his parents' house. Then he got sick, and so he'd been out. Luckily, he wasn't there when he got sick. I hope. I don't know, but it's been several weeks, so I think I'm okay. But just we probably need to get it out there and put it out there.
Yeah.
Hey, can you go ahead, Rob? I saw. Excuse me, a couple comments in there. I thought it might be interesting.
Yeah, we've got Frank Miller was on a Zoom call yesterday.
Frank
said that, I was on the Kentucky Realtor State Zoom call yesterday with bankers and economists. And they were saying the hardest hit that we will have, it will be in effect in the next 6 to 12 months, is going to be commercial office space, restaurant space, and multifamily. They were saying commercial customers have stopped paying rent because they're waiting on their SBA loans, and they might not ever get those SBA loans. Which is kind of crazy. But I have some clients who are looking to pivot to commercial because those prices are going to be down. Looking at those triple net leases, there's Walgreens and aren't going to be going out of business. So it might be a good time to buy. I mean, maybe that's the infrastructure we should be targeting. And then Ed Gibson saying, I still think we are 60 to 90 days for a small rebound. I think so too. Is when they start opening up a few things and people get haircuts and start feeling more like themselves, I think people will just be just the weather being better has made me in a better mood. Like when I can sit outside in a hammock, it just makes me feel like I'm not stuck here. It's more like, I would be doing this anyway. Let's see. And Harry noticed I am growing out my mustache. I was thinking channeling like Anchorman for last night, but it hasn't come in thick enough. I was really disappointed. I might leave it, but I feel really dirty with it on. Jeff, I never know how to say your last name. Paris? I don't know. You'll have to tell me. This event may not have been in the book The Next 100 Years, but there was an event held October 18, 2019 in New York hosted by World Economic Forum, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and John Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health called Event 201, which was a 3.5-hour discussion or presentation and tabletop discussion about the effect of the global pandemic and what it would have on 15 global businesses. And he sent the link on there, so if you guys look in the chat, you can go check that out. And I think that would be really interesting. 3.5 hours, I've got tons of time to kill. So I think I would love to read that or watch that, and I will. Dave's giving kudos for last night's event and networking. Lauren said it would be a good question. I posted the link for the surfaces, how long coronavirus will last. Sue, thank you, also posted something from the CDC. Harry stepped away and asked what Brian's question was. Brian had a tenant inside his rental. They left like 2 weeks ago. He's kind of concerned about going back in, touching the key. We're wondering how long it would take to have everything kind of dissipate or how to get the house clean. Lauren or whoever's going to be on the national REIA call, someone's going to be asking that at 4:00. So hopefully we can get some more information on that. That's all the questions we have in the chat. Anyone else have any more questions?
Hey, this is Brian Halsey again.
Yeah.
I'm a commercial realtor, and I've been in a lot of Zoom calls nationally, and across the board, we're hearing that the banks have just completely stopped even processing loans, especially the big ones, and and we got a couple of deals working that we don't know how we're going to get funded, that we're a little concerned about. And across the board, we're hearing that it's going to get really ugly in the next, actually it's going to span out over a couple of years probably. So that's what we're hearing.
Well, just on that note, Brian, if I could kind of add opinions again, I mean, it makes sense, really. People need a place to live. They need particularly affordable places to live. What we saw in 2008 was the contraction of the economy, the consolidation of homes. Obviously, that's a possibility again. As people can't afford, they will, move in with their parents or consolidate households. But commercial, I mean, I just have to believe that it's inevitable. It's going to take a hit on the commercial because of everything that's happening. We're going to go into a recession, presumably. The economy is going to contract. Any kind of public-facing businesses are going to be suffering. So there's going to, cause there to be available space. And it's like what somebody was talking about, Jordan was talking about last night, Jordan Pone, is that there's no market for these mortgages out there in the secondary market. So we were talking really last night about houses, but I'm sure commercial loans are some of those are packaged or they're converted into, income streams or whatever. A lot of them are held by the banks. But, to Jordan's point last night, there's just there's a break in the chain of the normal flow of the transactions. Switching back to the single family houses, I mean, these things get sold on the Fannie and the Freddie and the secondary markets and turned into mortgage-backed securities and so on and so forth. So when those people that have to take the risk to purchase those maybe before they go onto the Fannies and the Freddies, it's the chain has been disrupted. And I can easily see, to your point about how commercial, it's just logical that it's going to take a much harder hit than residential will.
Well, one thing that could be really cool, I know commercial already has, pretty cool zoning and whatnot, but in Oregon, they had a need for more working class people, and because everybody was getting pushed out of the city. In Toronto is the same way, but they haven't made this change. It'll be cool to watch it. But Oregon created all single family homes and they changed the zoning to multifamily. So maybe they'll allow that commercial space to serve other purposes so that way we can get people in it. Because the city doesn't want a ghost town downtown or in any of these areas. So I bet they'll change the way they operate. And that could be really good. It could be way more fun to go downtown. I mean, how many shops do we drive by and like, man, I wish there was something cool there. Well, maybe we'll get something cool there. I don't know. It'll be good things.
I think that point about the banks, to me, I'll be curious, Chris, that's what I'm looking at. And for multiple reasons. I'm constantly right now looking for the home buyers, their ability to get a loan. And also, the banks and lenders who work with us investors, because if all that tightens up, and when I say tightens up, I mean, if they shut that down, then our whole business from a rehab and a buy and hold, that just jams everything up, because it doesn't do me any good to go buy a house to fix up and hold it if I can't refi it on the backside. Of course, you all know this. I'm just saying those are the things that concern me, and it doesn't do me any good to buy a house and rehab it to retail it if I can't sell it. So and that's why I asked Jordan about, that's probably, if I have a concern, that's probably one of my biggest concerns out there, is just what is going to happen with all these. I think the government tried to help early, and in the process upset the fruit cart pretty bad. And I think everybody's now a little bit scared because they don't have that way of balancing when they are out there buying and guaranteeing those loans. So that's probably been my concern, just on the residential side.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. It'll be interesting. We know what's going to get hit. Eric has things are already tough for retail-based commercial space. Yeah, when I went to that economic outlook for 2020, they said that we had a surplus of resident or office space, warehouse space, primo, go get it. But office space, we had a little bit of a surplus, which was driving down prices. 2019 set the record for retail store closures, 9,500 closed, which shattered the 2017 record of 8,000. Predictions this year range in the 12 to 15,000. So it's interesting, and I wonder like how these big box stores, like, you know, they're dying off a little bit. But I mean, just right here on Breckenridge, that they're repurposing that Kmart. I mean, it could end up being a really good thing, guys. I mean, you might see more larger chains move in, like you'll see more Chick-fil-A's, more Chipotle's, things that are going to move. But yeah, commercial's going to be tough, and you know, I'm sure we'll do our best to get more content on that and how to best practices and how to keep your places rented. We'll adapt. We'll change with all of you guys. We're here. Any other questions before we wrap up? While we're waiting, Home of the Innocents dance money. I think we're up to $400. Once we hit 1,000, we will get a TikTok dance video from Frank Miller and Jordan Pone. And Will Chandler has also graciously offered to do a dance. And if you weren't on Frank Miller's call, Frank just had a great call, and I think he said he's going to do them once a week. So check it out. It's with his Believe Investment Group. It's free. I don't know. It's just another way to connect and learn more. I'm not seeing any more questions. Any parting notes, guys?
How about a commercial?
A commercial? What?
Flipping loan is making loans.
Oh, yeah. Talk about it. Oh, and one thing that's cool about Flipping is they do commercial loans, and where most people won't. So if you see an opportunity that's a little different, Chris will get flipping weird with you.
Thanks, Rob.
No, my pleasure. Anything else you want to leave with, John?
No, hey, just stay safe, and let's all just keep helping one another out.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Everyone have a great day. Stay safe. Take care.
Thanks,
See ya.
Rob.